Hi everyone, welcome once again to A.O.S. Abroad. Thank you very much for joining today's episode. Really do appreciate you for coming on live. And today we are going to also be talking about the easiest immigration category-based jobs for you to qualify for express entry jobs. Um, right. So let me just take that again. We are going to be talking about the easiest occupations to break into to qualify for what the category based draws under the express entry. Now, for those that know, when it comes to the express entry happens to be the flag program, the flagship program. It happens to be the major program for Canadian permanent residency. So, if you want to come to Canada as a permanent resident, the major program that a lot of people know about, even though it's not the only one, of course, but many people know about the express entry. And before, express entry was so difficult to actually get into, you understand, get qualified for. It was so difficult for you to get what we know as that invitation to apply for permanent residence through the what express entry. But since last year, Canada brought up a very interesting opportunity for those that qualify and for those that are serious about coming to Canada as permanent residents through the what? Through the express entry pathway. And that was what we came to know as what the category based selections. The category based selections is one route or one sub program that is under the express entry, which many people have benefited from, you understand, based on the different occupations they actually are currently doing in their home country, in their residence country, or even in Canada already. So, that being said, if you are part of those that are into some of these occupations, you stand a higher chance of getting selected and getting invited to come into Canada as a permanent resident, either alone or with your family members, whether with your spouse, together with your children, you understand, or with your spouse alone if you don't have children, or even with your children alone if you are divorced or you're separated or your spouse is deceased. So that being said, let's now talk about it. Many people know that yes, express entry is the way they can use to come to Canada under the permanent residence pathway, but they don't know that if, for instance, you are in another occupation and you want to actually get into a different occupation, or you see that the particular occupation you have is not qualified for express entry, is that an all in all um, what they call it, way to say that you are not qualified and you can never get qualified? Or is that just a way for you to now rethink your qualifications and check how you can qualify later on through the what? Through the other occupations that are available. So in essence today, what we are trying to say is that even if you are not qualified by your own main occupation, even if you are not qualified by your own duties, responsibilities, and job title, you can still adapt another job title. You understand, provided you have the skill set, you understand, to do or to practice that job, and you are able to gather experience in that job. So, in order to make it clear to you, let me just give a particular example of myself. Many times I do always talk about my own situation because uh, I know about my own perfectly. I went through the process and I saw that even though we didn't have the category based draws of express entry that time, you understand, when I wanted to come into Canada as a permanent resident, when I wanted to actually get selected through express entry, even though later on I didn't get selected through express entry, I got selected through the PMP because that was the easier route. The provincial nominee programs were the easier route to get into Canada with at that particular time. But PMPs right now, or let me say category based draws, are similar, you understand, to PMPs right now. So if you still want to get selected under the express entry to come into Canada as a permanent resident, you can still get selected through the express entry using the category based selections we are talking about today. So a particular example of my own was when I wanted to come into Canada, they were not selecting people under my own main occupation. Do you understand? If you have always joined us before, you know that I've always said that I'm a language teacher. Do you understand? That's what I do. That is what I studied in school. You understand? I studied linguistics for my bachelor's degree. Do you understand? And when I was to start working, I started working as a language teacher. You understand? For those that are in Nigeria, you know about the National Youth Service Corps. You understand? After my program in the university, I went for my National Youth Service Corps where I was teaching English language and French language. And when I was to finish the service after a year of, you understand, serving the country, I later had to set up my own academy where I was majorly teaching people, you understand, languages and preparing people for examinations, international examinations like IELTS, TOEFL, TEF Canada, TCF Canada, DELDAF, and the rest of them. So that being said, when I wanted to actually get started with my own Canadian immigration, I wasn't selected because the language teacher occupation I started with was not in demand at that particular time. And because it was not in demand, because they were not selecting people as language teachers, I had to strategize and see which other occupations are easier to get selected under. Do you understand? And that was what prompted me to go forward for web development because, of course, at that time I had actually had knowledge of web development. I had developed my own company website. You understand? I have also helped other companies to, you understand, develop their website and also similarly to maintain their website. Do you understand? So, as a result of that, I want you to understand too that even if your main occupation doesn't qualify, the other experiences or the other knowledge that you have, the other skills you have could also help you to come into Canada. Do you understand? And today, that's why we are going through the CIC news website. CIC, the Canadian Immigration and Citizenship News.com website, where we saw the article that was written on June 6, 2025, centered on the easiest occupations to break into in order to qualify for what category based draws under the express entry. Now, this is golden because you understand sometimes if you don't know the way out and you read some of these articles, you understand, by professionals, by, you understand, people that are into the Canadian immigration landscape, you should be able to understand that they are giving you clues, they are giving you tips, they are giving you ideas on how you can actually benefit from their own knowledge and from what is currently going on in the field of immigration, what is currently going on in the world of Canadian, you understand, visa and immigration process. Now, this article was written by Janice Rodriguez and Derek Shanks. They were two writers, and their write-up goes thus. He said, for some foreign nationals, changing careers may be their best shot at receiving an invitation to apply for Canadian permanent residency, PR, through the express entry. Now, this is exactly what I did. This is exactly the way I came into Canada because all I just did was changing my career focus. All I just did was, you understand, because I remember the first express entry profile I created, it expired after 1 year and I wasn't selected. Do you understand? I was not able to get that shot to Canadian permanent residence because the occupation I was using as a flag occupation was not in demand, was not the occupation Canada was expecting or Canada was inviting at that particular time. So all I just wanted to do, or all I just had to do, was to go back into the job board, you understand, and map out a different career for myself that I had knowledge and expertise in. Do you understand? So your best shot could be just changing your career and having to get the invitation you so desire. So now, if you don't have a provincial nomination, you remember, during my own time when I was talking about it, I said the category-based job was not available at my own time, during my own time. So what was available was provincial nomination, the PNP, and because the PNP was available, that was what I used to actually qualify for permanent residence for Canadian immigration. But they are now saying if you don't have a provincial nomination like I had, if you don't speak good French like I spoke, and I am still speaking because I am still teaching French. That is still what I'm doing. You understand? As a career, I'm still a French teacher. I'm still educating people. And of course, that reminds me, if you want us to also educate you in French language, if you want us to prepare you for language examinations like I.O.S, like TOEFL, like TEF Canada, like TCF Canada, like DELF, you understand? Go on our website, aosacademy.com. You'll see our online courses there. We also teach people virtually as well. We don't just leave you to also only take the online course. We also assist you with our virtual trainings. You understand? We also have books, materials, resources. Do you understand? Because of course we have partnered with Prep My Future in order to help you with past questions, study materials that could help you prepare for some of these examinations and also learn French very well. So if you don't have provincial nomination like I had, if you don't have or you can't speak good French like I had, and you don't have a high enough comprehensive ranking system score, the CRS score, which I didn't have to, you understand, in order to be invited for maybe under the Canadian experience class, if of course you are in Canada and you have experience, work experience in Canada, you could consider building your what, your work experience, the work experience that is necessary to qualify for express entries occupation category based draws. This is like the back door to immigration. This is like the second chance you have for permanent residence in Canada. This is the category based draw, is like the loophole, the legal loophole that you have to not necessarily have a high CRS score, but to have just enough for you to qualify for one, at least one of the category based draws or the categories, you understand, under the category based selection. Now, some people may be asking, what is the category based selections? Now, the category based draws invite only those candidates in the express entry pool who meet the characteristics of the what, of the category, and features significantly lower cutoff scores than the CEC, than the Canadian Experience class draws. Now, many people think that express entry, you need to have very good scores, 500 plus. Some people even 470s, 480s. You understand? You need to max out a lot of things. Yes, it's not wrong. When it comes to the general draws or the Canadian Experience class draws, or even the PNP, the Provincial Nominee Program draws, you need to have, you understand, some people need to have 500, some people need to have 700 after they have gotten, you understand, their provincial nominations from other provinces. Some people, like, I remember my own self when I was working on my own express entry, even though my score as at now, if I had the same score I had then, if I had it now, bet me I could have gotten selected, because my score was about 493. But I wasn't selected under the normal express entry draws. Rather, I was selected under the PNP. Ontario, the province of Ontario was the province that actually selected me around that time. Do you understand? So I had to go through the provincial nomination. And I remember also Quebec province also picked me under their what, Arima portal that I subscribed to. But I had to go through the PNP nomination. I had to pay the fee for the nomination. I did dual application. I applied firstly under the province and later on applied under the federal government of Canada. But what we are trying to say right now, that you don't need to do dual application if you qualify for category-based draws. You don't need to stress yourself on, you understand, being pre-qualified basically by the province before you get qualified for the federal government draws. You can directly become qualified under the category-based draws without having to max out a lot of what, CRS points. Do you understand? Now, what are we saying in essence? We said to qualify for an occupational category-based draw. That means a draw that is based on a certain occupation that is in demand in Canada. You just need 6 months of continuous full-time or equivalent part-time work experience in a single occupation with an express entry category. Within an express entry category. Now, what is that? Let's break that down, because sometimes people don't really understand some of these nuances when we are explaining the concept of category-based jobs. What do they mean by that? Let's assume that you are in a healthcare occupation Maybe you are a physician, and because as a physician, it is part of the occupations that are in demand in Canada at this particular time. You just need 6 months of work experience. Unlike the Canadian experience class programs that they say you may need 1 year of work experience, or the general draws that you may need more years of experience. Some people have, you understand, 10 years of experience, maxing out their what they call their work experience before they can get the opportunity to qualify. But in this, 6 months is the, you understand, the minimum is the requirement. Though I do tell people the more experience you have, the better. The more you have to show. Don't just go with the minimal requirement. Do you understand? Yes, they said the minimal requirement is 6 months. But if you have 2 years of work experience, 3 years of work experience, you will be more qualified than someone that just has 6 months of work experience. If there are a lot of people that are coming in with just 6 months of experience, you would first be selected because you have, you understand, years of experience. But the minimum again is just 6 months. That's number one. Now, in this article, in this talk, we are going to be discussing, because they have identified some eligible occupations that are the easiest to start gaining work experience in. You may not need to be a professional. I talked about being a physician. You understand? Physicians need to actually be doctors, basically. Family physicians, for instance, need to be doctors. And for you to become a doctor, you need to have your MBBS. Do you understand? You need to have some trainings as what, as a medical doctor. But there are some occupations, and these are the occupations we want to talk about here. The occupations that you can get into. I remember my own occupation, the web designer and developer occupation that I went into. Remember, I told you I had bachelor's in arts in linguistics, bachelor's of arts in linguistics. I didn't have bachelor's in science. I didn't have computer science degree. I didn't have any college diploma to show that I was a computer scientist. But because I had experience and I had some little informal education in that niche, I was able to show that yes, I am a web designer. And because, of course, that's still exactly what I'm still doing now. Even though I'm a French teacher, majorly that's what I do, you understand, as a main profession. I still do at the side web development gigs. I still do, you understand, I still build my own company website. I still also maintain my own website. There are a lot of companies that have started up in Canada right now that the website, when it comes to, okay, yes, I can give someone to just help me run the website, but I am the one that maintains the website. Do you understand? Sometimes I go get domain names myself. Yes, sir, I still do things basically in that niche, even though I'm not majorly, you understand, working in that area. So what are we trying to say in essence? What we are trying to say in essence is that, yeah, we want to also give you some of the occupations that you can be eligible to start with easily without needing to go and study 4 years of a bachelor's degree, like, you understand, I did in bachelor's of, you don't need that. You don't need to go and get a master's degree. You don't need to, you understand, go and do like housemanship or what they even call it, things, all these medical doctors, you understand, go to medical school. You don't need to do all those things, or law school. You don't need to do all those things. You, with these occupations, you can easily dive into, you understand, and change careers. And me, for instance, me, I don't even like to, when it comes to something like changing careers, I will not say I changed careers. I will just say I had to my expertise. I had it to my skills. You understand? Being a web developer didn't mean that I need to leave my career in what, in language teaching and exam preparation. All I just did was added to my skills, because sometimes you don't even need to change careers in this world we live in now, because a lot of things, a lot of skills, a lot of expertise you can still use to make money. All you just need to do is to add to your what, expertise. So here we want to show you to what are those occupations you can add, what are those skills you can add to your what, to your expertise, in order to become someone much more qualified, someone much more in demand to actually get into Canada as a permanent resident. So the table below, even though you can't see the table, the only people that can see the table are people on YouTube. Do you understand? But I'll be talking about the table. I'll be listing the occupations on the table for you. So the table below summarizes the easiest occupations you can break into, including the typical length of time you need for studying or training, and the typical length of time you need to invest before you can begin building the 6 months work experience in that occupation. And some of you, you may already have these skills, you may already have the trainings, the education, that you don't even need to necessarily get started right now. All you just need to go do is to go gather documentations to show that yes, you have been doing this thing before now. And that's exactly what me too I did that time. Because I was already a web developer, I was already building websites, you understand, maintaining websites for people. As at that time, what I just needed to do was to contact my past employees and my past employers and to tell them, okay, now I want to work on immigration. Can I get a letter from you? Do you understand? Okay, can I actually make use of your what they call it, your website in my portfolio as thisshowdery.com to show that yes, I already have these skills and this, you understand, websites in my portfolio that I've developed before. Do you understand? So similar to that, you also need to note the CRS cutoff score for the most recent express entry draws in each of these categories in order to know that, oh, do you qualify or can you qualify for these draws? You understand? Before you even dive into this occupation. And also you need to know, especially when you're coming to Canada and you want to work in these occupations, you need to know the median pay, the average paycheck across Canada for that particular occupation, and whether that occupation is part of the new restrictions on spousal open work permit, SOWP eligibility. Now let's move on. Let's now talk about the occupations that are in demand that you can get into easily. Now, the first occupation we have here is the occupation in the education sector. And the occupation is the elementary and secondary school teacher assistant occupation with NOC 43100. And they said the time to qualify to begin working in this occupation is just 10 months to 2 years. And the CRS cutoff score, you understand, of the most recent express entry draw is 479, especially exactly the one that was drawn on May 1st, 2025. And the category is education. The median hourly rate is $24.36 for elementary school teacher aid. And of course, yes, it is eligible for spousal open work permit. Now, that's a lot of information. But the major information we want to learn here is the occupation, the elementary and secondary school teacher assistant. And that's what I'll be focusing on after now. Now, they said just 10 months to 2 years is what you need. Some of you, you may already have been an assistant, just like one of our clients. I was talking to one of my clients and he said, yes, he has once worked as a mathematics teacher in a school. But he told me, he said, he doesn't have the what? He doesn't have the license to practice as a teacher yet. Because in Nigeria, it's not necessary for you to have the license. It is recommended, of course, to get the license, but it is not something that if you don't have the license, you can't practice as a teacher. I remember when I was in my youth service year. Oh, okay, Renowned Fashion Backup wants to join. I hope you're able to, you have sent a request to be in our live video. I hope you're able to join. So, what am I saying? I remember when I went for my NYSC, for my National Youth Service Corps, you understand, program. I remember that at that time in Nigeria, the government of Nigeria, the federal government of Nigeria could post you. They could post you to a school to go and teach there. Even though you understand, as I said, I finished in linguistics. And there are many of us, some people, like in my case of my own clients, he said he did computer science in school. So they told him to start teaching mathematics. But he didn't have that education background. You understand? So if you don't have that education background, you may not be able to claim in the express entry that you are a secondary school teacher. You understand? You may not be able to claim that you are a secondary school teacher. But that does not mean that that experience you have gathered over the years, you understand? Like in the case of the NYC I mentioned, that does not mean you cannot use another NOC code to show that you are qualified in that, you understand, teaching practice. Example, elementary and secondary school teacher assistant. You can say you were an assistant, you were assisting the previous or the current mathematics teacher. Do you understand? Even if you were not able to practice lawfully as a full-fledged teacher, you can practice as a teacher assistant. And with that, your 1 year of work experience under the NYSC will be able to actually cater for that particular niche. So that's the number one occupation. The number two occupation is insurance agents and brokers. And for that one, they say you just need a few weeks or to a few months to show that yes, you are qualified. And the last draw that they peeled for that was 491, April 11, 2024. And it was under the STEM occupations. Do you understand? What are they saying in essence? Insurance, anybody can be an insurance broker or agent, especially when you just take some few weeks of training, you understand, and you just have few months of experience. You don't need specialized knowledge or bachelor's degree or master's degree in that. Medical laboratory assistant and related technical occupations with NOC 33101. And of course, they said within 1 to 2 years, you can. There's one of our clients again as well that was a medical laboratory technician. I remember she was a technician. You understand? I think the program she even studied in school was laboratory technology. You understand? And I was telling her, I said, you now said you are a teacher. Or what did she even say she is? With this, you qualify as what? As a medical laboratory assistant. Oh, she said she didn't have a lot of experience in that. For the teaching, she has about 5 years of experience. For this one, she just had about 1.5. I said, even with your 1.5 year, it shows that you are more qualified than the average person that just has less than 6 months or close to 6 months months of experience in this, because you studied and you understand practiced slightly. Now, a nurse aide is another occupation, or patient service associates. A lot of people come under this when it comes to caregiving. You understand? A lot of people are nurse aides, patient service associates. You understand? And this one not applicable. The years of experience you need is not, yeah, like you can begin working immediately. You don't need to show that yes. And even though this last score that they picked was 510, which was way high, you understand, on May 1st, 2025, it is still an in-demand occupation under the healthcare and social services, you understand, category. So you can also look into that. Now, pharmacy technical assistant and pharmacy assistant is also one that you can start immediately. You can begin work immediately without necessarily needing, you understand, years of experience or technical support. Cooks, if you are a cook, there was one person we still talked to that she said she's in catering, one of our clients, and she said she has actually gone to get an experience in a training in catering. You understand? She has also been able to, you understand, take some being internship. Yes, I think she said she got into a paid internship where they paid her and she was able to. And I said, yes, you already qualify as a cook. You understand? You already qualify as a cook. You can start work immediately. You can qualify. All you just need to do is take your language examination, get your result. You understand? Submit your credentials to Canada for evaluation. You understand? Get your um reference letter to show as proof of what job experience. Now, some people are also concrete finishers. You can start work immediately with that one. You don't need much. Like these jobs are jobs that you get on the job trainings for. It is when you get there, so far they know that you can really do, like you have the stamina to actually be told or to do the work. The employer will train you on the job. The employer will train you on the job. So you can come into Canada as a concrete finisher, for instance, as a permanent resident. When you now get into Canada, you get started with working, you understand, in that particular field once you get a job in that area. Now, floor covering installers. This one too can mean you get started working immediately. You don't need specialized knowledge for it. Do you understand? And it's under the trades occupation. Likewise, floor covering installers, roofers and shinglers, all these painters and decorators, you can start working immediately. You can say you are a painter with just having experience painting your own room and getting paid to paint, you understand, the houses or the homes or the rooms of other people that you have actually worked with before. Now, if you're a butcher, you understand, cut meat, fish, and things like that, whether in the retail or in the wholesale, you can as well also begin work immediately with this. You don't need expert knowledge in it, you understand? And this is under the agriculture and agri-food occupations under the category-based selections. Now, what are we saying in essence? We said for some occupations, the time it takes to become qualified to gain work experience will vary depending on the provincial jurisdiction, because there are some provinces that may require you to get licenses or some trainings or some apprenticeship before you can practice. But in general, the minimum requirement for you to become, or for you to come into Canada, to immigrate into Canada with this job are minimal. You understand? Exceeding the minimum requirement may be helpful in getting hired. If you have, instead of just 6 months of experience, if you have like 2 years of work experience, it may help you in getting hired, especially in more competitive job markets. But you just need to know that for permanent residents, you don't really need much. You understand? So below, they said they also provide more details on each occupation. If you are an elementary and secondary school teacher, for instance, teacher assistant, for instance, under the education category, who are these people? What do they do? What are their skills? As an education assistant, you support students basically in classrooms by helping with their assignment and with their integration. You also assist them with special needs, and you supervise activities, you monitor their progress, and you help teachers with what? With equipment and other tasks. And in getting into the occupation, you must have completed secondary school education. How many people have not completed secondary school education? Like that's the minimum. The minimum. You don't really need much. You don't need specialized skills. Secondary school certificate. Who doesn't have the WAEC, West African Education certificate, for instance, in Nigeria? The WAEC is what you can use for this education assistance and to come into Canada as a permanent resident. I always talk about the situation of my own common law partner when it comes to talks like this. My common law partner, Rashidat Yusuf, she didn't have any bachelor's, she didn't have any master's, she didn't have any French knowledge, she didn't have ICRS. In fact, if she was the only one that was to come to Canada, she would not have been able to create an express entry profile because she didn't qualify. You understand? She was so young, she didn't have years, like decades of work experience. You understand? But by virtue of just the secondary school certificate she has, you understand, and working with someone that was able to understand that yes, permanent residence or immigration into Canada is not something that needs to be that difficult if you know, you understand, the loopholes, the legal loopholes you could use to actually immigrate to Canada. And because she was under me as a common law partner, we were able to actually come into Canada together easily. Do you understand? So the barrier to enter these occupations are very minimal. Secondary school certificate, you can have it and you can say yes, you are an education assistant if you have at least 6 months of work experience in that line. So in addition to you having secondary school certificate, you would usually need to just complete a college program in teaching assistant, in education assistant, or in other social service sciences. If you have it, fine. If you don't have it, it's not necessary. The time needed to complete such a program can range between 10 months to 2 years. And some people actually get to work in an organization to actually gather that experience. So some positions may also require you to get the CPR, the cardiopulmonary resuscitation, and the first aid training, which are certificates that can be gained within a few days. Right? Now, positions that also require helping students with special needs may also require specialized trainings. But if you are not working with people in the specialized training field, if you are not working with students that require CPR or first aid, you may use your secondary school certificate like that. You understand? If you are also an insurance agent or broker under the STEM occupations, who are the insurance brokers? These are people that, insurance agents are people that sell policies on behalf of specific insurance companies. You understand? So while insurance brokers work independently on behalf of clients to help find and sell suitable policies from across multiple insurers, in most cases, they work either as agents or brokers or even both, since their roles involve different licenses and what obligations, basically. And how can you get into that occupation? Again, you just need the secondary school certificate, the secondary school education. Some provinces may say you should go and complete some licenses, some courses and qualifying examinations, but the time to do this is several weeks or, you understand, a few months. The exam, for instance, you need to take will depend on the type of insurance you plan to specialize in. For example, in Ontario, you must pass the other than life, the OTL exam to become a general insurance agent. And you must pass the life license qualification program, LLQP, to become a life insurance agent. And you must complete the registered insurance brokers of Ontario exam to become a what? To become a broker. After these exams, after passing them, you would typically need to apply for the license through the provincial regulator by submitting documentation and paying the licensing fee. And some of provinces, like the province of Ontario, will require you to be sponsored by an insurance company to get licensed as an agent. So after receiving the license, the insurance agent or broker can need to ensure that the license is up to date by renewing it, you understand, periodically. And as in the case with many sales roles, it is always a commission factor heavily based into the compensation. What that means is life insurance roles are often 100% commission based. You understand? While property insurance roles is more common for agents to have base salaries plus commissions. All those things don't really matter right now when you want to even come into Canada. It's for you to come into Canada first as a permanent resident. When you come into Canada, then you can now be determining how you want to work, how you want to get paid, and the company that would actually sponsor you for your licenses. Now, medical laboratory assistants and related technical occupations is also an occupation under the healthcare and social science services. And this one, you understand, completing your secondary school education is a must. And many of the medical laboratory assistants just collect, they label and prepare samples for testing, they log and validate patients, and they set up lab equipment. You understand? In addition, for them to get secondary school education, you understand, some of them need to complete the college certification program in medical laboratory science, and the time to do it is within a year or 2 years. Employers may also ask you to, you understand, provide certification like the Ontario Society of Medical Technologists, OSMT, or the Canadian Society of Medical Laboratory Sciences, CSMLS. Do you understand? And these certifications are usually granted to those who have completed a college certification program and then apply for and also pass their certification examinations. Right? Now, nurse aides, orderlies, and patient service associates, people that people commonly call the caregivers. Though it's not all caregivers that are nurse aides, but in most cases, some of them are also caregivers. So these are people that are under the healthcare and social services, and this group supports patients with daily care tasks like bathing them, like feeding them, like taking them from one place to another through mobility. You understand, like assisting them with medical duties, like taking their vitals, checking their vital signs, you understand, documenting their care and other maintenance tasks. Do you understand? And getting into the occupation, you would typically need secondary school education. Now, look at all this education we are talking about. It is basic education. You don't need so much, do you understand, to actually function in these occupations. And of course, they will give you on the job training. When you get into the occupation, you are going to be trained. You understand? Some jobs will tell you to get personal support worker, you understand, program completion, or nursing aid program completion, or healthcare aid program completion, whether at the college or private institution. Or some will even say you should complete college nursing orderly program with specialized or supervised practical training. But it's not all employers. You understand? Some employers may also require you to get CPR, the cardiopulmonary resuscitation, and the first aid courses, which of course you can complete within a day. You understand? And some will even say you should get your driver's license because you may need to drive some patients to and fro their house. So that may be an asset when you are trying to get a job in Canada. But basically, secondary school education is like the basic thing you need. Now, pharmacy technical assistants and pharmacy assistants is also under healthcare and social services, and these pharmacy assistants support pharmacists. You understand, by entering prescriptions and client information. They also help in preparing and labeling medications. They help in maintaining inventory. You understand, and they may also handle medical billing and stock shelves. You understand? These people, how do you get into this occupation? Basically, you get into the occupation by completing the pharmacy assistant college program, which usually takes within 6 to 12 months. You understand? And or you complete the secondary school, of course, the secondary school program, and several months of on the job training. And of course, becoming a pharmacy technical assistant requires you to just complete up to 2 years of pharmacy technical assistant vocational program. Now, being a cook as well is under the trades occupation, and this is a profession where you are responsible for preparing and cooking meals, overseeing the kitchen operations, and supervising kitchen staff and maintaining inventory. And of course, the secondary school education is just the considered asset for you. Though, in addition to that, you may also be asked to complete a 3-year apprenticeship program or a college or other program in cooking or food safety, or several years. Sometimes you may just have several years of commercial cooking experience, and that may be enough with your secondary school certificate. And some companies may also require you to have additional requirements, such as, you understand, requiring cooks to have the food handler certificate, which of course you can also obtain within a few days, or the cooking certificates, which are available but are voluntary in all provinces and territories in Canada. The qualified cooks may also earn the Red Seal endorsement by successfully passing the Interprovincial Red Seal exam. You understand? Many of these exams, the qualifications, the licenses, many of them are not required. They are not compulsory, you understand, in many of the fields. So concrete finishers is another trade occupation, and this trade occupation is a occupation that has levels. You understand? The concrete finisher levels and smooth, freshly poured concrete, basically, on various surfaces, ensuring what it meets the grade and depth specifications, right? They work in hand with what? With power tools to impart desired what finishes, to install fixtures, and to apply waterproof compounds. And how can you get into this occupation? Easily, with your secondary school certificate, you can get into it. You understand? Apart from that, they may say, okay, you need 2 to 4 year apprenticeship program. They may say at least 3 years of work experience in a trade or some high school, college, or industry courses in cement finishing. You understand? And getting a trade certification is voluntary, it's not compulsory, it's voluntary in many provinces and territories outside Quebec. You understand? Just like floor covering installers too. For floor covering installers still under trades, you understand, what they do basically is to measure, to cut, and to install various types of floor coverings, including carpets and hardwood. You understand? They use specialized tools like stretchers, like rollers, like adhesives, and they may also inspect, repair, and estimate costs for flooring projects. You understand? And what do you need? Secondary school certificate again is what you need to go into this occupation. Just secondary school certificates. You understand? They may say you should complete a 2 to 3 year apprenticeship program, but of course it may not be compulsory. You understand? Or 4 year work experience in a trade, or some courses in floor covering installation, which may be optional. You understand? And trade certifications for floor covering installers is only compulsory in Quebec. It is available but voluntary in all other Canadian provinces and territories. So Red Seal endorsement is also available after successful completion of the Interprovincial Red Seal examination. Now, for painters and decorators, why are we giving you all these occupations? For those that are just joining, we are talking about these occupations because these are occupations Canada are currently needing, currently expecting, that are in demand in Canada right now for immigration purposes. So if you are not a painter before, a decorator before, but you go into this field and you have the IELTS or the CELPIP or the PTA examination result, if you don't even have French, but you're young and you have the bachelor's degree or in other fields, not necessarily in painting or decorating, in other fields, to give you added points, you may actually get qualified and be selected to come into Canada as a permanent resident. And of course, what the painters or decorators do, what they do is to prepare and clean surfaces. They remove wallpapers, they loose paint, they repair cracks and holes in the wall, they sand surfaces, they mix and thin paint, you understand, to get certain colors and textures. And they also advise customers on wall coverings and provide cost estimates. And how can you get into the occupation? You can start working directly, even without secondary school certificate. Though having secondary school certificate is considered an asset, you understand? And of course, just similar to other trades occupation, they may say you need 3 to 4 year apprenticeship program, which may not be compulsory, you understand, or at least 3 years of work experience, which of course may not be compulsory. And if you get the trade certification, Though it is voluntary in most provinces or territories outside Quebec, you also stand a better chance. Now, roofers and shinglers, also in the trades occupations, these are people that install, repair, and replace various roofing systems. They also set up scaffolding for safe access and may also estimate materials and project costs. And how can you get into this occupation? Very easy. Secondary school certificate is all what you need. Though to be certified as a roofer, you may need 2 to 3 year of apprenticeship program or have at least accumulated 3 years of work experience in the trade. But having a certificate is voluntary in all the provinces or and territories except the Quebec. And shinglers, on the other hand, generally require 1 to 2 years of on-the-job training, right? Now, butchers, being the last one, are under the wholesale and retail, agriculture, and agri-food occupation category. And what do butchers basically, or meat cutters, do? They prepare and package meat, poultry, and seafood for sale or custom orders. You understand? They manage inventories and displays, and they ensure food safety standards are met. And you can get into this occupation by, you understand, stumbling into the field immediately. You understand? But secondary school certificate basically is an asset if you have it. And a lot of employers may ask for completion of college or other voluntary training programs. Some may ask for food safety training certificate. Some may ask for prior experience. Prior experience may be even the major thing. You understand? Butcher training programs can also range from between 4 weeks to several months. Now, we have talked about all the categories and all the occupations that you can just get into right now to be able to get into the immigration sphere, to be able to get invited for permanent residency. Now, what are the eligibility criteria for this category-based jobs? We have talked about the first one, which is for you to accumulate at least 6 months of full-time work experience or equivalent part-time work experience within the past 3 years, you understand, in a single eligible occupation. You understand? Also, you need to meet the minimum criteria for express entry and be eligible for any one of the three immigration programs that it covers. And you need to meet the requirements in the instruction for that round of invitation. Now, basically, we have also looked at occupations in the training, education, experience, and responsibility level 3 in this article. We focus on the level 3 because the level 3 is the one that just requires secondary school education. Let's say we were talking about the level 1, you may need bachelor's degree or master's for that. Level 2, college diploma. But the level 3 is the one that just requires what? Secondary school diploma. And some may require college diploma as well, but you may not need it. And apprenticeship training of less than 2 years may be required, or even more than 6 months of on-the-job training may be also required. Now, let's take an example of someone that can also change careers into one of these occupations and get selected under the express entry. Now, Brian is a 26-year-old professional, a media professional for that matter, working in Canada on a graduation work permit. He qualifies for the CEC, the Canadian Experience Class, under the express entry. He has a CRS score of 470 points based on his bachelor's degree, a 1 year of Canadian work experience, 2 years of foreign work experience, and a CLB 9 in English in all 4 abilities. However, this score of 470 that he has under the CEC hasn't been high enough for him to receive an invitation in any of the 2025 Canadian Experience Class draws held so far. So to improve his chances, Brian applies for and obtains a study permit, enrolls in a college program in Canada in education, and works full-time as a teaching assistant for 6 consecutive months. After this, the CRS score increases to 505. With this new profile, Brian would have qualified for the education draw on May 1st, which had a CRS cutoff score of 479. If IRCC were to hold another education category-based draw and the cutoff score were to remain close to that of the previous draw, Brian will be well positioned to receive an invitation to apply for what? For permanent residence in Canada. So what are we saying in essence? What we are saying in essence is that these occupations that we have talked about before, these occupations may be easy to get into, you understand, and easy to qualify for you to actually immigrate to Canada permanently, alone or with your family members. So the question I have for you right now is, what are you doing to actually get into some of these occupations and to qualify for one of these occupations in order to come into Canada? If you need our assistance or the assistance of our immigration professionals, our immigration partners, then you can reach out to us, send us a DM, or go on our profile, click on the link on our profile, and go on our website and get educated on how you can get started with your own immigration process yourself or together with our immigration partners. Get to watch our webinar videos where we explain how you can get qualified for category-based draws, for express entries, for PNPs, for even Quebec Skilled Worker Program, and all other provincial permanent residency programs out there. If you have any questions right now, please drop it on the comment section. Let us use these few moments to actually answer your questions and to respond to your queries or your inquiries. Now, for those who always would like to join us, would like to participate, don't forget that at least every week we come on live, at least once a week, to talk about trending topics, to give you ideas about Canadian immigration, to also assist you with your, you understand, with your travel planning. Now, don't also forget that you can always join us live. You can join us, whether be it on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, you understand, on Facebook, anytime, to actually ask your questions even after this live session. And don't forget to like, to share, and to subscribe, and to follow us for other live content like this. Okay, so if we don't have any questions, thank you very much, everyone, once again, and do have a lovely day ahead. Bye for now. Au revoir.